The following podcast contains bizarre theories, strange facts, and some out-of-this-world opinions. Listener discretion is advised, especially if you trust the government. So there's 53 miles of ancient documents buried beneath the most powerful religious institution in the world. Scrolls that predate the Bible, prophecies that predict the end of the church, demon names you're not supposed to say out loud, and maybe, just maybe, alien blueprints the Pope doesn't want you to see. This isn't fiction, this is real, and it's locked away under Vatican City, where only a handful of people are allowed in, and no one is allowed to talk about what they find. Welcome to Conspirashy.
Conspirashy. Conspirashy.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Conspirashy, the show where no story is too strange, no theory too far-fetched, and no one is safe from our deep dives into the unknown. It's basically your favourite podcast that feels like that weirdly fascinating debate in the pub after a few beers. I'm Ash, your host, your guide into the world of conspiracies, occasional devil's advocate, and professional mystery solver, although that last one is definitely self-proclaimed. If you're new around here, welcome to the rabbit hole. We cover conspiracy theories, weird mysteries, ancient histories, you name it. We cover it all whilst having a bit of a laugh. So join me every Wednesday and make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can find all episodes of Conspirashy for free on Spotify or wherever you listen to my podcast. And if you want to get in touch, you can reach me on TikTok and Instagram at Conspirashy or via email conspirashy@gmail.com. And if you do enjoy the episode, make sure you leave a 5-star review. It helps me kick the ass of the algorithm. So yeah, please, if you do enjoy it, reviews are welcome. This week on Conspirashy, we're breaking into the vault. Not literally, no need to arrest me, but we're going to be exploring the forbidden books of the Bible, the theory that the Vatican made contact with aliens, and demonic files too dark for daylight, just to name a few. And I'll be asking the ultimate question: what if the Vatican isn't protecting its faith? What if it's protecting the truth? Before we go any further, if you are a devout Catholic, easily offended by jokes about the Pope, or currently storing ancient demon scrolls under your bed, this episode might not be for you. You've been warned. So grab your rosaries, charge up your tinfoil hats, and let's take a holy little detour into the dark side of organised religion. And this episode may or may not get me banned from Italy, but let's dive in. Alright, let's travel to the land of pizza, pasta, and popes. You're in the heart of Rome, surrounded by cobblestone streets, overpriced gelato, and tourists trying to take selfies with nuns. You walk into the Vatican City, easily one of the most powerful countries in the world, and also the smallest country in the world, by the way. Now, underneath all of that holy marble and gold is a vault. Not a figurative one, a literal, underground, fortress-level archive that's been collecting secrets for centuries. It's officially known today as the Vatican Apostolic Archive. Sounds innocent, right? But until 2019, it was called the Vatican Secret Archives. And that, guys, is way more on brand for this show. You know, calling it Secret Archives and then getting surprised when people start asking questions is like, I don't know, naming your hard drive definitely not porn, and then being shocked when someone clicks on it. Like, come on. So what's actually inside? The archive contains over 53 miles of shelving. Yeah, miles. More than 35,000 volumes of documents covering over 12 centuries of Catholic Church history. This isn't some, backroom filing cabinet with a few dusty scrolls. This is a proper Indiana Jones style vault. It's stored deep within the Vatican walls beneath a tower designed by Michelangelo, because of course it is. And what's in there? Well, so we got papal bulls. It's hard to say and take that serious. Papal bulls. Bulls as in Bulls, not the Pope's balls. Papal bulls. But it's also not the animal. It's official decrees. Although, with this much secrecy, a few literal bulls wouldn't surprise me either. And a few balls as well. I mean, probably under the age of 12. But anyway. Also, there's ancient letters, excommunication orders, heresy trial transcripts, top secret church communications, records from the Inquisition, and private correspondence between the Vatican and kings, queens, dictators, and scientists. It's almost like if the world's biggest religious institution had a diary and then buried it 50 feet underground, if you get what I mean. So, who's allowed in? Access to the vault is extremely restricted. You can't just rock up in a hoodie and say, right, Pope, fancy showing me a bit of that Jesus file? No, it doesn't work like that. So you have to apply months in advance, prove you're a qualified academic or historian, provide specific topics you want to research, and even then, large parts of the archive are still completely off limits. They have a staff of over 50 full-time archivists, and only about 60 people per year are allowed access. And when you compare that to, let's say, the British Library or the US National Archives, where thousands of researchers pass through every month, it is a little bit suspicious. Come on. Also, imagine guarding the secret to the universe and having Dave from Sussex come up to you and be like, I just want to look into the history of the Holy Sausage Roll. Yeah, maybe it is better being underneath the Vatican and only 60 people per year accessing it, to be fair. But what about that name change? That is pretty suspect, no? Back in 2019, the Vatican rebranded the Secret Archives to the Apostolic Archives, claiming that secret was a mistranslation from the Latin word secretum, which actually means private or personal. Sure, Pope. Sure. We believe you. They basically just went, it's not secret, it's just secret in a holy way. But let's be real, if you're keeping miles of handwritten scrolls locked in climate-controlled vaults beneath the Pope's house, that's pretty secret by any definition anyway. So here's the stuff that we know for absolutely sure is in the Vatican Secret Archives. So, first up we got the trial of Galileo Galilei in 1633. So this is the classic church versus science showdown. Galileo dared to say, chill out boys, the earth moves around the sun. And the church responded, of course, absolutely not. You're a heretic. We'll put you on trial. You're a witch. Well, the archives contain his official trial transcript, signed documentation of his forced recantation, the judgment that put him under house arrest for life, and notes on theological debates where cardinals argued about astronomy like it was Love Island gossip. Galileo allegedly whispered, and yet it moves. Legend. What a legend. Next up, we've got the Mary Queen of Scots' last letter in 1586. So hours before she was executed, Mary Stuart wrote a heartbreaking letter to Pope Sixtus V, begging for help and spiritual absolution. It's in the archive, the original, complete with the royal wax seal and her last ever signature. Also, a fun fact here that I found online is that the Pope didn't actually respond in time before she was executed to grant her help and spiritual absolution. So, bit of a left me on red situation going on there for sure. Next up, we've got the documents from the Knights Templar trials between the dates 1307 to 1312. So yeah, the actual records from when the Templars were arrested, tortured, and disbanded. It includes detailed interrogation transcripts, forced confessions, evidence that the Templars worshipped a strange head-like object called Baphomet, and a papal absolution secretly issued by Pope Clement V and then covered up. Basically, you're all guilty, except maybe not, but still dead. Also, I am absolutely going to do an episode on the Knights Templar, so listen out for that. Next up, we've got the excommunication of Martin Luther in 1521. You know, the lad who said, hey, maybe the church selling indulgences for cash is a bit sketchy. Yeah, the church didn't love that one. So the archive contains the papal bull Exsurgi Domine declaring Luther a heretic, official Vatican responses to the Protestant Reformation, communications with German princes urging them to stop Luther's growing influence, and basically a medieval cancel him thread. Next up, you've got Inquisition files from the year 1250 onwards. The real deal, the Spanish Inquisition, the Roman Inquisition, witch hunts, blasphemy trials, exorcisms, burning at the stake. It's all there. It includes names, locations, charges, full transcripts of torture, witness testimonies, and manuals on how to detect heretics. Spoiler alert, they often had tits and an opinion. And yes, it's all in Latin because nothing says we're hiding something like 700-year-old flaming heresy scrolls written in calligraphy. Next up, you've got correspondence with dictators between the 1930s and the 1940s. This one gets very real. Touchy subject. Is it still a touchy subject? Let me know in the comments. Is it still a touchy subject to talk about the 30s or the 40s? Or have we all kind of moved on? The archives include letters exchanged between Pope Pio XII and Adolf Hitler, internal Vatican memos discussing the Nazi regime, controversial silence of the Church during the Holocaust, and the Church's role in helping Nazis escape post-war justice via the rat lines, which were secret paths to South America. Some of these docs were only opened recently in 2020, but many are still sealed. Next up, you got Michelangelo's letters to the Pope. So this is from the 1500s, and let me tell you, this Sistine Chapel's painter was pissed. His letters show him arguing with the Vatican about money, complaining about the physical pain of painting the ceiling, possibly threatening to walk off the job, and also being a full-on Renaissance diva. And also there's a quote saying, "I'm not a painter," from Michelangelo in 1509. Well then, why are you upside down painting naked angels, mate? I don't get where Michelangelo was coming from, but it was 1509, I don't know. Maybe he's like, I'm a god, and that's why I have this hand of God, and whatever, I don't know. It's very impressive, though. So maybe he should have just stayed as painter, I don't know. What happened to Michelangelo? Did he die a famous death? Michelangelo's death. Was that famous? I can't remember. Anyway, next up you got secret orders and papal bulls. Papal bulls. Including Bull Inter Cetera in 1493, which literally gave the New World to Spain and Portugal. Also, it includes orders to explore, colonize, and convert or kill non-Christians. And you got the Bull Unam Sanctam in 1302, which declared the Pope's power above all kings, which was the, that original power flex. I'm more important than y'all. I'm closer to God. And also you got the excommunication letters for kings, queens, and people who stole church wine. Yeah. Next up, you've got the correspondence with every European monarch ever. The Vatican was basically the medieval WhatsApp group chat. Letters to and from Charlemagne, Napoleon, Henry VIII, until, he rage quit and made his own church. You got Catherine de' Medici, Queen Isabella of Spain. Many of these letters include confidential war strategies, requests for annulments, political gossip, and oaths of loyalty. And finally, you've got the mysterious personal files. So some Vatican officials, including popes, kept private journals, letters, and confessions. Most of these remain unopened and are sealed under personal restriction clauses. We don't exactly know what's in these ones, but theories include secret visions, confessions of sin, accounts of miraculous events, sketchy bank dealings, aliens. Yep, don't rule it out just yet. We're definitely going to be diving into aliens a little bit later on. Don't worry, no episode of Conspirashy is complete without some aliens. So, to recap, you've got a literal underground treasure trove of documents owned by the world's most powerful church, with barely any public access and a track record of really not loving transparency. And we're meant to believe it's all just harmless paperwork. Get out of here. And that's just the stuff they admit to. I mean, if that's what's open to the public, 400-year-old excommunications and popes getting passive-aggressive letters from Michelangelo. Imagine what's down there that we're not allowed to see. The forbidden texts, the unsanctioned gospels, the stories that didn't make the cut, the stuff buried so deep it's practically been exorcised from history. But here's the thing, the Vatican doesn't throw things away, they hoard. And when you hoard for over 1,000 years, you're bound to end up with a few skeletons in the underground closet. Or maybe a few aliens. Who knows? So we've looked at what's officially in the Vatican vaults, the stuff the church is willing to admit is real. But now let's take a look at what we know that they're hiding. The stuff that pops up in hushed scholarly circles, offhand Vatican remarks, and the occasional leaked document before mysteriously vanishing. Because if the church is holding on to 53 miles of paperwork, you can bet your last communion wafer not all of it's just birthday cards from dead popes. So first up, we've got the banned books of the Bible. So let's start with the great deletions. The modern Bible, depending on your denomination, has between 66 and 81 books. But back in the day, there were loads more floating around, and many of them were written just as close to Jesus' time as the canonical Gospels. I'm talking the Gospel of Thomas, which is a cryptic philosophical take on Jesus' teachings, no miracles, just vibes. The Gospel of Mary Magdalene, heavily suppressed, possibly painting Mary as Jesus' closest disciple, and maybe more, wink wink. The Gospel of Judas, where Judas isn't a traitor, but Jesus' chosen one who helps him fulfill his destiny. Now that's a plot twist. Then you've got the Book of Enoch, ancient Jewish mysticism, full of fallen angels, heavenly visions, and prophecies about the end of the world. And finally, the infancy Gospel of Thomas, where baby Jesus literally murders another child for bumping into him, and then resurrects him like, my bad. So what is the church's reason for excluding those texts? Well, they say they're not inspired by God. Right. Imagine just showing up at the writer's room for the most famous book in history and being told, yeah mate, sorry, your chapter's a bit too spicy. We're going to cut it. Like, what the fuck? But that's basically what happened here. But, you know, with divine fire and threats of excommunication instead of redundancy. And many of these excluded gospels were locked away by the church for centuries. Some are only known because they were found in places like Nag Hammadi in Egypt, stashed in jars like theological Tupperware. We know the Vatican helped shape the Bible, but what if their editors were less spiritual curators and more religious censors? And to touch on a couple that I just mentioned, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. For example, that paints her not just as Jesus' follower, but as the one he trusted most. Some scholars even argue that the Gospel hints she was his wife. Now that's a fucking plot twist. Unpublished pages of that Gospel are still hidden deep in the archive, including a prophecy where Mary warns the church will become corrupted by men hungry for power and that her story will be erased. And if that's true, it has happened. It is fully happened. Then there's the Book of Enoch, full of stories about fallen angels, the Watchers, descending to earth and giving humans forbidden knowledge like crop growing, metallurgy, eyeliner, civilization. The Vatican's hiding original pre-flood copies, complete with diagrams and descriptions of angelic beings that sound suspiciously like aliens. In 1982, a Vatican employee named Antonio M. confessed on his deathbed that he'd handled a black file marked Libri Non Canon, which translates to non-canon books, containing pages that made Jesus sound less like a messiah and more like a mystic time traveller. And he's since been deleted from the records. Classic Vatican. Next up, you've got ritual manuals and demonic files. Yep, this is real. The Vatican has a department of trained exorcists. There's even a book, the Roman Ritual, which contains instructions on how to perform an exorcism, and that's public. The official Roman ritual is available to priests. It includes procedures for exorcisms, prayers, holy water, Latin shouting, all the good stuff. But there's also a restricted version locked in the archives, known by insiders as the Red Book. It's rumoured to include rituals the church deemed too dangerous, documented cases of demonic possession, audio recordings, drawings, even confessions from priests who lost their faith mid-exorcism, and documented instances of bodies levitating, vomiting objects, and even mirrors breaking in other rooms. Some priests, like Father Gabriel Amorth, who was the chief exorcist of Rome until 2016, performed over 70,000 exorcisms. 70,000 exorcisms. He also claimed the devil was infiltrating the Vatican itself. Cool. Cool. We're just gonna carry on as business as normal. Just gonna skim over that. What? The main chief exorcist of Rome until 2016 said the devil was infiltrating the Vatican itself after performing over 70,000 exorcisms. Just let that sink in. What? That's crazy. So what is the archive hiding? We're talking case files that were too extreme, things that didn't follow the rules, cases where people levitated, spoke languages they didn't know, revealed secrets about priests' lives no one else could have known. One actually involves a 16th century possession where the afflicted spoke in perfect Sumerian, a language long dead, and also predicted the death of 2 cardinals down to the hour. What? And that file is locked up under E for extremely fucked up. You know your case is serious when even the Pope's like, yeah, nah, don't bring that demon energy near my gold chair, mate. you keep that over there, lock it away. Also, an exorcist from Poland claimed that during one session, the possessed woman began reciting a full 15th century papal speech, word for word, in perfect Latin, despite being illiterate and non-religious. When they reviewed the footage, the audio had this weird distortion on it, right? And the speech that she recited was only ever spoken by one pope, and that speech was never made public. So the Vatican demanded the tapes, and they sealed them up. Some claim the church is also sitting on ancient Solomonic grimoires, which are magical texts attributed to King Solomon, which detail how to control demons by name. Wild. Have you ever actually looked up or read any actual kind of exorcism prayer? I mean, they are pretty terrifying. Like, not just spooky, they do sound like the Vatican outsourced the writing to Quentin Tarantino or something during a bad acid trip. But I have looked into it. I tried to read one out for research, obviously, and let me tell you, I had to stop halfway through. My dog was looking at me funny, candle blew out on its own, and my Spotify shuffled to Slipknot. I was like, I thought I'd summoned a demon called Dave who only speaks in Screamo. I was like, nope, not today, Satan. Get thee back behind the IKEA wardrobe. It must have worked though, because I ain't been knocking since. I'm ready to throw hands. Come on, son. And honestly, if I do get possessed, just someone film it and I'll make it a Patreon exclusive. Might as well monetize my downfall. So next up on the list of what they're actually hiding, and let me tell you, we're going for it. Alien contact and the Vatican Observatory. So someone tell me, why does the Vatican have a fully funded astronomical observatory? Yeah. The church is watching the stars, and they've been doing it officially since the 1500s. Today, the Vatican Observatory is one of the oldest astronomical research institutions in the world, and one of its newer telescopes is called, wait for it, Lucifer. It is an acronym of the longer name, but still, bit on the nose. Why would you call it that? So, why does the Vatican need a high-powered telescope called Lucifer pointing at the sky from Mount Graham, Arizona? And if aliens aren't real, why are Vatican astronomers so obsessed with extraterrestrial life? Vatican scientists have publicly said they're open to the idea of intelligent alien life. In 2014, Vatican astronomer Guy Consolmano said he'd be happy to baptize an alien, as you do. Jesuit priest Jose Funes stated that the existence of ET life does not contradict faith. Pretty well, I think pretty much does, though. Like, isn't that what the Vatican's all about? Like, no, we're all just here on Earth. There's no aliens. Isn't that why we're not really told about aliens, that they exist? Because it would just cause mass hysteria because of all the people that are hyper-religious. Well, there is a real possibility that the Vatican has known about aliens for a long time, and I would not be shocked. I'm not shocked at anything anymore. After 24 episodes of doing this podcast, I'm not shocked by anything anymore. But they could have been aware of aliens since the early 20th century, when a UFO crashed in Italy in 1933. Did you know about that one? Benito Mussolini himself recovered the craft and called the Vatican before he called the military. And Pope Pius XI sent scientists to study it. That file is called the Civ Memo, part of a secret initiative named Servizio Informazioni del Vaticano, the Vatican's own intelligence agency. Wild that exists, no? I actually didn't know before, looking into this, that there was a UFO crash in Italy in 1933, but you can find some pretty clear evidence of that online. So, yeah, go and check that out. Just type in UFO crash 1933. You'll find, the Civ Memo, SIV Memo. Also, a Jesuit priest turned whistleblower claimed that in the late 90s that the Vatican also had a room labelled Stellarium, which was decorated like a chapel but was filled with star charts and alien-looking statues. He said he once saw a metal object the size of a shoebox with inscriptions that glowed blue when prayers were spoken nearby. And that whistleblower priest, he disappeared shortly after giving an anonymous interview. Classic. And yep, Vatican astronomers have literally said they'd be happy to baptize an alien. Like, hey little guy, little grey guy, welcome to Earth. It's some holy water and eternal salvation from whatever distant galaxy you've come from. We're just busybodies, aren't we? We're just humans. We're just busy. We just get our fucking fingers into every pie, don't we? We just think we know everything. We don't know shit. And the ancient Gospels, the ones we talked about earlier, some of them contain descriptions of fiery chariots, men from the sky, and bright wheels of light floating in the sky. So, what if those weren't metaphors, as we're kind of led to believe? What if they were witness accounts? Next up, have you ever heard of the Chronovisor? I think it's pronounced Chronovisor. It could be like the Chronovisor. 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 Let's go with that. Well, this one's a bit, straight up sci-fi to be fair, but still somehow wildly believable, because a Vatican priest named Father Pellegrino Arnetti helped build a device in the 1950s called the Chronovisor. It was a machine that could see through time. Yeah, like a celestial CCTV system. Supposedly, it was built with help from scientists including Enrico Fermi and based on mysterious soundwave theories. The Chronovisor could allegedly show you historical events, visually and orally, in real time. So, Father Ernetti claimed that he could view Jesus on the cross, so his crucifixion, the founding of Rome and ancient Roman Senate debates, lost Greek plays including Thyestes, which he was then able to transcribe after seeing this. He even published an image he said came from the Chronovisor, which was a photograph of Jesus on the cross. The Vatican seized the machine and declared it non-existent. But Ernetti described the machine in exacting detail, with cathode ray tubes, levers, a keyboard, and even sound tuning dials. Not something a random monk would just make up, if you ask me. Also, the Vatican having a time machine is probably the least shocking part of the episode, to be honest. I mean, if there's any organisation was going to have a secret steampunk technology with divine software updates, it would be the lads in the funny hats and the marble palaces, wouldn't it, to be honest? But here's my issue. If I had access to this literal chronovisor, like, hey Ash, want to see the birth of civilization? I know I'd waste it. Just, like, forget watching Jesus walk on water. I'd be stuck in 2006 listening to Akon smack that on repeat from a Sony Ericsson. That's the real shit right there. Or just one more day using Bebo. Bebo was the shit. Yeah, I could do that. Or maybe just watch my ancestors invent disappointment. Or go back to find out which pope touched a kid first. Probably the first one. And I'd also get banned from the Vatican for rewinding the crucifixion scene like it's Netflix. Excuse me, Father, but I think I saw Judas's smirk. Go back 10 seconds. Anyway, in 2001, a man posted to an obscure Italian forum claiming his grandfather had also worked as a Chronovisor technician. He said the device was later rebuilt as a viewing-only model, no interaction, just observation. He described watching Julius Caesar deliver a speech, but said the audio came with multiple voices speaking over each other as if the event had echoes from other timelines. So that's pretty fucking cool, I'm not gonna lie. That is cool to me. That sounds amazing. Let's get this chronovisor out. Let's project it in the sky. Project Bluebeam. Come on, let's do it. What do you think? What do you think about chronovisor? Do you reckon that's actually a thing? Do you think that there's technology for that? Or do you think it's all made up? Let me know in the comments. Next up, you've got to take a look at Pope John Paul I's death in 1978. Now, this one is very, very suspicious. So, Pope John Paul I died just 33 days into being the Pope. He was young, healthy, and about to launch an internal investigation into the Vatican Bank, which was knee-deep in money laundering. He also planned to expose the shady Masonic Lodge P2, whose members included bishops, bankers, and mafia liaisons. He was also rumoured to have compiled a blacklist of corrupt clergy set for mass demotions. Then, dead. Overnight. No autopsy performed. Found with reading glasses in one hand and a list of names in the other. The Vatican story changed multiple times, and a memo about internal reform vanished. He was apparently murdered by those who didn't want him revealing what he'd found. The wrong glasses were returned to his family. They were a different style entirely from what he'd worn for decades, and the list of names also vanished. Some even believe a confession letter is still buried in the archive, which was claimed by an anonymous insider, detailing how the Pope was given a fatal mix of blood pressure meds the night before his death. So he was poisoned, obviously. I mean, of course they did that. Or it's either the world's worst coincidence or the best cover-up since Judas kissed the wrong man. I mean, come on. And if that ever did come out, it would shake the church to its core for sure. Right, we've uncovered time machines, demon archives, and celestial alien baptisms, but now we're deep underground in the parts of the Vatican archive that don't technically exist on any map, the locked vaults, the nameless shelves. This is where the real secrets live, the ones they built entire doctrines to distract you from. So let's start at the source. The Vatican has, buried in its vaults, original Gospels and ancient scrolls that completely rewrite the story of Jesus. He wasn't the bearded sandal wearer we see in stained glass. He was something far more radical. These documents reveal Jesus as a teacher of hidden mystic knowledge, not a sacrificial lamb, but a spiritual revolutionary teaching ascension through personal power. They confirm his relationship with Mary Magdalene as both romantic and intellectual. She wasn't a sinner, she was his equal. Maybe even the real founder of the church. They reveal that Jesus didn't die on the cross, but survived, fled east, and lived to an old age. The resurrection is just a metaphor carefully maintained by the early church to control a narrative. The Vatican knows this, and it keeps the original text sealed away to protect its central myth. Because if Jesus was just a man, the power of the church evaporates. Next up, in the climate-controlled room 2 stories below the papal apartments, lies a black stone cube. Smooth, humming faintly, impossible to carbon date. It was recovered during the Crusades in what is now known as Eastern Turkey. But it's not from Earth. The symbols that are etched onto it match none of the known human scripts, not Sumerian, not Sanskrit, not Mayan, but they match something else. The markings found on metallic debris recovered from an unidentified flying object stored at the Vatican Observatory since 1933. Yep, same markings on that UFO that crashed in Italy in 1933 as what they found on this black stone cube that they have from Turkey. So the going theory is that the stone is a key. It's not clear what it unlocks, but in the 1970s, a priest assigned to study it was found catatonic, muttering in languages never recorded. His final written words were, "It speaks in silence." Wild. Crazy. Wow. That's unbelievable. It's literally like the Da Vinci Code. I love it. I love this podcast. But there's so much to cover, so that's why I'm kind of just firing through them. If you want to know any more about any of these, just drop me a DM. We can have a chat about them, or just Google them. There's plenty of information that you can find online, or use, Duck or whatever to filter out all the Google algorithms. Next up, there's a sealed document in the archives, handwritten, aged, bound in dark leather, known internally as the Testament of the Watchers. It details a visitation that occurred over 10,000 years ago during what the church refers to as pre-Adamite civilization. Of course there's a word for it. There's a word for everything. Pre-Adamite civilization. It's a cool... The thing that bothers me is that's actually a really cool term. But it's so ridiculous. Pre-Adamite. Okay, prehistoric. Long time ago. 10,000 years ago. I don't know. So in this document, a group of sky beings descend from the stars to educate early man. They teach the use of fire, agriculture, metallurgy, even music. Comes from them, apparently. They warn of a coming cataclysm and leave behind 12 tablets of instruction. One of those tablets, to this day, is missing. The rest are buried beneath the Basilica of St. John Lateran, guarded by a sect of monks who have never spoken aloud since the 12th century. It's crazy. I love this story. So these visitors, well, they weren't angels. They were scientists, missionaries, and possibly exiles. The church has protected their legacy in silence for millennia, and now claims it as their own origin story. Yeah. I've actually been to the Vatican many times. It's actually insane. It's so nice. It's beautiful. If you've never been, highly recommend, just go and see it. It's unreal. It's so nice. Like, just the architecture, the way it's put together, unbelievable. If you just, gloss over all the rest of the nonsense that happens with it, but it is just a really nice place. But, most of the time I was just pretending to care about Renaissance art and trying to justify spending €9 on a scoop of gelato, but, we'll move on. But here's what sticks with me. There was this thing, right? I was in the museum wing, the gallery of maps. So you walk through this long corridor of like stunning hand painted maps from the 1500s. They're gorgeous, right? Proper Da Vinci Code vibes. Looks amazing. But about halfway through, swear to God, no pun intended, so it's God. I clocked this little weird door, right? This weird little door, unlabeled, metal. It was slightly ajar, but there was no velvet rope in front of it, no sign, just two little steps. I could just make out two little steps that was like leading into darkness. And I did that thing where you're kind of like sort of pretend not to notice something because terrified of being disappeared. But I still think about it, like, what was behind that door? Imagine if that's just where they keep the Jesus time machine, or the demon freezer, or the Pope's UFO scrapbook or something, I don't know. Or maybe it's just a loo. Maybe I'm just being dramatic. I don't know. But I did go back after that, right? Because I was it stuck in my mind, so I was like, okay, I'm going to go back. I'm going to see that door, see what's up. Well, when I went back, I couldn't see it. It wasn't there. Where it was in my memory, where it wasn't there. So there's that, I guess. It was gone. It was vanished. Maybe it was a Mandela effect. Maybe the timeline shifted and it's no longer there, but it was definitely there before and then wasn't there when I went back. So, yeah, there's that. And I think that's the thing about the Vatican. I think that's what makes it so interesting, because you always get that feeling where there's just something out of sight. Something that you can't touch, and you're like, but I know it's just right there behind that wall or underneath the floor or something. And I think that's what makes the Vatican so interesting to go and visit, because you'll never get a guided tour of the real stuff, will you? But let's move on to what's stored beneath a biometric vault, refrigerated and shielded. They also have a genetic vault, right? And inside this are labelled vials of ancient blood and bone fragments from Jesus of Nazareth, from the Shroud of Turin and a thorn from the crucifixion crown. Mary Magdalene, taken from a sarcophagus in southern France. John the Baptist, they've got his severed finger kept in a gilded reliquary. And St. Peter from bone fragments confirmed beneath St. Peter's Basilica. But you'll never guess what? They've already started sequencing. A classified Vatican lab has been running genetic comparisons for over a decade. Some of the DNA contains markers not found in modern humans. Sequences that align more closely with no known species of Earth. A project known only as Genesis Code is still underway today, and the goal is to produce a hybrid lineage that fulfills a prophecy. Crazy stuff. And talking of prophecies, let's move on to the last one, which is the final prophecy and the Vatican's exit plan, right? So there's a vault called Camera Petra, which means the stone room. Only 2 living people are allowed access at any time: the Pope and the Archivist General. Inside this vault is a scroll, just a single scroll, ancient, pre-Christian, untranslated by the public, known as the Letter of the Black Sun. It details a coming event, which is not a judgment, no fire or plague, something that's older than time, which is a reset. The scroll predicts these following things, right? The collapse of language, a rupture between dimensions, the appearance of those who walk sideways through hours, and the extinguishing of the sun, or at least its replacement. Mad, those who walk sideways through hours. Time travelers, right? Surely that means time travelers. Or like people who can walk through different realities, dimensions. Are we not seeing some of these things already? Collapse of language, we are talking like a global language, kind of globalist right now. Whether that's, internet speak, or we're using AI to translate things and you don't really need to speak French, for example. You can happily get through France with just your phone. So that is kind of a collapse of language, right? Or just the fact that a lot of people now in the world speak English. It's kind of the main language of the world, I guess. You've got English, Arabic, and Chinese, right? So that could be the collapse of language. The rupture between dimensions. You've got things that are happening right now with CERN, making these portals and people claiming that things are coming through from other dimensions. The appearance of those who walk sideways through ours. So that's kind of like time travel or the merging of realities. We're kind of seeing a lot of that with like the Mandela effect, maybe. And the extinguishing of the sun. I don't know. I mean, when I was a kid, I never saw a blood orange sun or a blood orange moon or a sun that's green or blue. I mean, we're getting a new sun every bloody month at this point, or a new moon or whatever. So maybe it's faulting. Maybe the light bulb's going out. Someone's not paying their bill on the light bulb. Because the sun is doing loads of weird shit, right? We've also got, next year in August, a full total eclipse. And that's happening way more regularly than I ever remembered. I remember, like, when I was a kid, there was one in, like, 2004 or something. And they were like, this is the first solar eclipse that's ever happened in the last 120 years. And the next one won't be for 300 more years. It's every year now we get a solar eclipse or some shit like that. Like, blood orange moon or something. It's literally happening so often now. So I wonder if that's all of it, all coming together. Oh, terrifying. It's also terrifying that the Vatican knows this and has a backup plan, no? There's actually a secret site in Patagonia, which has buried structures, seed vaults, digital libraries etched into tungsten, and a church ready to restart civilization, by the way. And you can absolutely go and search that. Patagonia underground civilization or underground city or something. And also there was that TV show that came out recently, which was absolutely fire. Such a good TV show called Paradise, where it's all about this city that was built into the mountain to withstand the end of the world. You know, they tell us this shit through films and TV. They've been preparing us for this for years. I mean, The Day After Tomorrow, 2012, there's so many end of the world things. And yeah, this Paradise show is actually really, really good. You should check it out for sure. Maybe it is what's to come. So, might be good to do a bit of research, maybe. So how would one even access the archives? So you decide you want to access the Vatican Secret Archives, right? Lovely. Well, all you need is these simple things, including a PhD, Vatican approval, a letter from your university, a real reason to be there, no exorcisms on your record, and preferably a name that doesn't sound like Ash from Conspirashy. So if you've got all those, you might be okay. But let's actually break down the process. So step 1, you must be a qualified academic. The Vatican does not allow hobbyists, journalists, YouTubers, blokes named Kyle who just want to vibe with aliens, or basically anyone who might tell the public what they find. You need to be an accredited scholar with a research topic so niche it'll make your nan's eyes glaze over. Something like Papal Baal's usage in southern France during the pre-Council of Trent period. So if you're writing a paper on that, you might be alright. Step 2, you submit a formal application. And by formal, I mean handwritten in Italian, blessed by a pigeon and sealed with a Vatican brand wax stamp that you definitely don't just have lying around the house. You'll also need a letter from your university dean, your passport details, a topic description, and 0 references to UFOs, Jesus blood, or this podcast. Once submitted, the Vatican will take 4 to 6 months to ghost you completely, before sending you a rejection printed in 13th century Gothic font. If you are approved though, you'll receive a time slot and limited window of access. Step 3. You're let into the reading room. Yep, the legendary archive itself. Except you're not actually allowed into the archive. You're taken to a reading room with no phones, no photos, no pens, only pencils and catalogue cards, and a librarian who definitely knows where the aliens are buried, but just isn't telling. Come on, Janice, spit it out. So you fill out the card with the exact document you want. There's no browsing allowed, and they basically just bring you that exact document so you can read it there and then, and that's it. But even if you follow all the rules, your access is heavily restricted. You can't ask for anything post 1959, so all documents after that are sealed. Anything relating to the Inquisition unless pre-approved, or any material involving post-war Europe, aliens, exorcism, or the time machine. So, you can study Latin letters from 1472, but not documents from World War II. Make it make sense. So what's it actually like inside? So very few photos exist of the inner archive, and the ones that do are stunning. We're talking endless corridors of leather-bound tomes, wooden card catalogues that look like potion drawers, medieval climate control, so just very cold, and a smell that's 40% holy dust and 60% silent judgment. There are over 53 miles of shelving, spanning 12 centuries of secrets, and only a few thousand people have ever been granted access. Wild. So realistically, we're not getting in. Not with the official way. But how would we sneak in? And this is obviously just for entertainment purposes only. Don't arrest me. But I would say these are your options. 1, you could become the Pope. Yeah, okay, it's long game, high stakes, but you get unparalleled archive access and a massive hat. So that's one option. That is the long game. That's like, okay, I'm willing to dedicate my whole life to church, maybe touch a few kids on the way, and yeah, then I'll be able to access. So that's our first option. Second option is we could pose as a Swiss guard, right? So a Swiss guard, so that means you can get pretty close. You could kind of sneak in maybe one time, but the downside of that is you do have to wear the stripy jester cosplay. There is no getting around that. Third option is we could exercise the door open. I'm talking, Latin chants, spin 3 times, threaten to summon Galileo, Invictus Invorium or some shit, and let's open the door. Maybe I'm not really into Harry Potter, so I can't really give you this information. I only know 2 of the spells. Wingardium Leviosa, that means to float something, and I've even forgot the other one. What's the one where you can kill someone? Invictus, no. Expelliarmus. Does that mean just get out? Does that just remove someone outside, expel them? Or is that the one? Expelliarmus. Anyway. So yeah, you could use a magic wand and just charm the door open. I'm sure there's a spell in Harry Potter for that. That's another option. Or option number 4, I guess kind of 5 now, is that you could crawl through the basement under the Sistine Chapel at 3 a.m. while whispering Chronovisor and holding a bag of Doritos as a peace offering. I guess that's one way. That could work. Do you have any other ways? Let me know in the comments. How else can we get into the Vatican for entertainment purposes only? But realistically, they have made it so only the most obedient, toothless academics can ever reach the truth. And even then, they only show you what they want you to see. So why? You might be asking, why lock up over 12 centuries of human history, theology, philosophy, and who knows what else in a basement beneath the world's smallest country? What are they really so afraid of? Well, I think the answer is power, and it's always power. Unlimited power. So, when you think about it, the church controls the past to own the present. There's a reason why George Orwell said, "He who controls the past controls the future," because if you control what people believe happened, you control how they act now, and you control what they worship, what they fear, who they trust. So if Jesus was just a mystic rebel with a girlfriend and a time machine, the very foundations of the church crumbled like stale communion wafers, no? And if the church knew about aliens in 1933 and hid it, they're not protecting souls, they're just gatekeeping reality. And if exorcisms are real and documented, which they are, then we're living in a world where spiritual warfare is actually happening, and they're just choosing not to tell you. And when you look at the official Vatican line, it's that they restrict access to preserve delicate materials and avoid historical misinterpretation. I mean, if I had a time machine, a UFO in the shed, and DNA from Jesus, I'd probably say the same, to be honest. I'm not going to lie. But I don't think it's about preservation. I think it's about you are controlling the narrative. They are terrified of religious uprisings or loss of faith. Accountability. They would have to take accountability for historic cover-ups. And they just don't want people asking the wrong questions, do they? Because if the truth gets out, the real truth, millions might walk away from religion. Or worse, millions might demand change. And the church, well, it's not very well known for dealing with change. They're like Apple. They're like Apple, but for guilt. Also, imagine being the PR guy at the Vatican. Hi, yeah, sorry, we got reports that Pope Pew had tea with an alien in 1942. A demon escaped from the exorcism wing and someone found the scroll confirming Jesus hated fish. And your job is to spin that, please. I imagine it goes somewhere like this. Good evening. Please join us in prayer as we deny everything and blame Galileo again. Well, no, I think the truth is people want to believe. And maybe that's the genius of the archive. It doesn't even matter what's down there. The secrecy kind of creates the power. Because mystery does have gravity. People are drawn to the unknown, to forbidden things. So the idea that just behind that sealed door, behind that dusty shelf, lies the thing that changes everything. Even my own story, just seeing that one door that was ajar without anything in front of it, kind of looked like it shouldn't have been there. That sparked a whole thing in me that I went back. So we are always searching for this type of shit. And the Vatican knows it. That's why they keep the vault sealed, not just to hide, but to hypnotize people, control the narrative. They've done it for years, and they do it the best out of any religion, any government, any monarch. The Vatican, they hold the gold star. They got the gold medal. So let's pretend, just for fun, that we're wrong about the Vatican archive. That is not a giant library. It's not dusty old scrolls and Latin footnotes. What if it's worse? What if the archive isn't hiding secrets? It is the secret. What if the Vatican archive itself is kind of an engine, a containment unit for things too powerful to exist in the open? So not books, but objects, devices, relics that do things. What if somewhere under Vatican City sits an ark that bends space, a tablet that shows you the exact moment of death, a mirror that reflects your soul instead of your face, or a relic, when opened, erases memories not just from you, but from the world? There is a theory that the entire archive was designed by Da Vinci and Michelangelo together, using sacred geometry and alchemical codes, to create a vault that is more than a building, it's a lock for reality. Or let's zoom out. People think of the Vatican as ancient, out of touch, but they're always in the room. When you look at the CIA, the Vatican was in contact during the Cold War. MK Ultra. Some of the church's psychiatric arms were involved in testing trauma-based mind control. Bohemian Grove. Several members of the clergy have attended. Even Epstein's network had alleged Vatican-connected financiers laundering cash through charity arms. And the rat lines after World War II? Yep, the Vatican knowingly helped Nazis escape to Argentina using forged Red Cross papers. Why? Because they weren't just protecting people, they were preserving alliances, knowledge, secrets. What if the archive isn't a vault? It's a negotiating table for the elite. And when you take a look at, every so often the Vatican releases a few new documents, like little breadcrumbs, feed the peasants. Oh look, Galileo's apology. Oops, found a letter from Mary Queen of Scots. Whoopsie, turns out we might have missed that papal bull from 1563. Well, these aren't revelations, they are distractions. Classic manipulation move. Leaks are timed. Whenever something big is stirring online, aliens, occult rituals, ancient tech, the church will drop a crumb to satisfy curiosity. It's a shell game. Look here, not there. And it works. It works every time because we're suckers for a good scroll. But let's take it one step further into conspiracy territory. What if the archive is alive? Yep, let's go full creepypasta on this one. There are whispered tales from people who've been inside, select scholars, archivists, priests, and they describe odd sensations. Lights flickering in rhythm with breath, books rearranging themselves, Latin words appearing and disappearing on parchment, voices mimicking the sound of the reader's own voice, and a humming from the walls that sounds almost like chanting. One account from a 1987 French academic said, "The archive is not a building, it's a presence. I felt watched, not by cameras, by something older. Smarter. I believe it speaks through the documents, and I believe it chooses what you see." So is the archive sentient? Is it a consciousness formed by centuries of secrets, rituals, and human desperation? And if so, who does it serve? I've definitely upset it. Fuck. I've insulted the Vatican about 37 times in this episode. So if the archive is listening, sorry, my bad. Please don't possess me. I'm already fucked up enough. Don't need possession. Actually, just fucking try it. You'd give me back. You'd be like, no chance, sir. I'm going back to the Vatican. I'm just a curious lad trying to make sense of the world where the Pope might be hiding a demon squid and a time-traveling Jesus clone. You'd be curious too. And finally, what if it's a prison? Have you ever thought about this one? A place where they've locked away not knowledge, but entities. Things that were summoned and couldn't be destroyed. Things that live in words, in symbols, in thoughts, maybe even demons, maybe even the things that those 70,000 exorcisms has brought out of those 70,000 people. Maybe they put them all down there and it's a prison. Could be. Could be that it's not a library, but it's a containment facility. In which case, that's why they don't let people down. Because if you open the wrong drawer or the wrong door, we might be fucked. It might just unseal the cage. Kind of like what's underneath the cabin in the woods, where they've got all those little monsters all lined up waiting to come up, and if you open the wrong door, it's chaos. Could be. So, the Vatican Secret Archives. Are they really a dusty old library full of faded scrolls, ancient bureaucracy, and priests with too much spare time? Or are they the single most powerful vault on Earth? A cage for secrets, a temple for the elite, a map of human history drawn in things we were never meant to see. Maybe the truth is, the archive isn't a place, it's a boundary between the worlds we know and the world we pretend doesn't exist. Because think about it, we've got UFO sightings buried under cathedrals, time machines designed by monks, DNA vaults with blood from people who shouldn't exist, and priests trained not to preach, but to God. That's not religion, that's science fiction with incense. And here's the thing, we'll never get in, not properly, unless one of y'all takes one for the team and just declares his love for Jesus and becomes the Pope in 60 years. One of you out there, I've got my money on you. Don't worry, I'll back you. But the idea of the archive, that's already inside all of us. That gnawing, whispering feeling that something's off. That someone knows something. That history is incomplete because someone made it that way. So whether you believe the Vatican is hiding ancient demons, alien scrolls, or just a really embarrassing papal diary from 1423, one thing's for certain, we'll never get the full truth from the top. But that doesn't mean we stop looking, because here on Conspirashy, we don't do blind faith, we do fun faith, with aliens, demons, and a casual side of institutional secrecy. As always, if you've got your own theories or stories, get involved in the comments on Spotify or YouTube, or you can drop me a DM or message on my socials. You can find me on TikTok and Instagram at Conspirashy, or email me, conspirashy@gmail.com. So go ahead, drop the first comment, and get the conversation started.
Conspiracy. Conspiracy.
This has been Conspirashy, I've been Ash, and if you enjoyed this episode, you know what to do. Rate the show 5 stars, tell a friend who still believes the Pope's hat is empty, and if I go missing, you know exactly where to start looking. And until next time, keep asking questions, keep digging, and remember, the truth is out there.